Well, good morning, everyone, and welcome to today's MarkMonitor, Brand Protection Tips for Mobile Apps and Social Media, where we'll be covering best practices for proactively safeguarding your brand online in these dynamic channels. And I'm Dermu of MarkMonitor, and I'll be doing the opening remarks for today's event. Before I introduce our speakers, I'd like to run through just a few housekeeping items. During today's presentation, all participants' lines will be muted, and this to ensure that there isn't any background noise or interference. If you're experiencing any technical difficulties joining the session, please WebEx support directly at 866-229-3239. I urge you to ask questions at any time during the event. Questions will be addressed during the Q&A session following the presentation. So click the Q&A tab located on the floating toolbar on your screen, and this will open the Q&A box where you can type your question and submit. Please ask questions through the Q&A tab only, as that will greatly help with streamlining all questions. Now, questions our speakers don't have time to get to today, we'll do our best to follow up with you afterwards. Recording today's webinar, and tomorrow afternoon we'll be sending out a follow-up email to all registrants with a link to the recording and presentation slides. With that, I'd like to go ahead and introduce our speakers for this morning. Today we're joined by brand protection experts Sneha Kohli and Kirby Barno of MarkMonitor. Sneha is the Senior Product Manager of Brand Protection Solutions at MarkMonitor. She's responsible for executing the product vision and strategy for marketplaces and social media services. 12 years of experience in system analysis, and has spent the last 6 years focused on the growing problem of corporate brand abuse on the Internet, including the distribution of counterfeit goods. Joined by Kirby Barno, Customer Success Manager with the Online Brand Protection Group at MarkMonitor. Manages a team of experienced online brand protection professionals and is responsible for ensuring their clients have the tools to successfully and effectively safeguard their brands. 11 years of experience brands and has spent the last 4 years developing strategies, implementing best practices, and doing enforcement efforts to protect brands from online abuse. Well versed in day-to-day challenges that brands face in mobile and social media channels, as well as measures available to successfully enforce on abuse, Kirby will be moderating our question and answer session following Sneha's presentation. So I'll go ahead and turn things over to Sneha to get us started.
Great. Thank you so much, Reagan, and thanks to everybody for joining us today. I discuss emerging threats in the brand protection space as it relates to the mobile and social channels. I'd like to cover, we'll go over an overview of today's social media and mobile app landscape. We'll talk benefits of continuously monitoring the top sites across social media as well as mobile apps. Some examples, some real examples of how online threats in the mobile and social channels could affect your business. And we'll wrap up the conversation today with enforce best practices and strategies that are going to help you stay ahead of brand abuse. Talking about brand protection in an omni-channel world. What do I really mean? So in today's digital-centric world, customers are interacting with your brand across multiple channels. An online marketplace, a social media, Facebook page or Twitter channel, on mobile apps these days, across the internet, and of course in your brick and mortar stores. So for example, just to illustrate this a little bit more, a person could walk into your brick and mortar store already armed with information and research that they conducted online on the internet. They've solicited some recommendations from their friends on social media sites, and are well informed and eager to buy a product. Or they never even enter your brick and mortar store. They might decide instead to take their online research, take their recommendations they got from their friends, and make a purchase on an e-commerce site. As you can see, as the influence of mobile apps and social media increase on consumer buying decisions, it's important to take advantage of creating a consistent message and protecting your brand message, because there could be brand confusion that would occur otherwise. Creating a holistic, cross-channel brand marketing and protection strategy at the outset, confusion, missed opportunities, or worse occur. I think does a really good job of highlighting how influential the digital world has actually become. In this view, and the amounts of new data created every single minute. And it's difficult to see from your perspective, but social media is actually contributing a significant amount of this data. More established social networks, as well as some of the newer ones, are continuously promoting and creating new content. Also, image, it really only highlights the number of iTunes apps that are downloaded per minute. And that's 48,000 actually right now. Every single minute iTunes apps are downloaded. And so factored in Android apps as well, that number would skyrocket. So image is meant to highlight how consumers are connecting with your brand, especially using mobile app and social media. They're being connected to you more than ever before. I want to reiterate again the fact that it's important to focus on social media and mobile app channels now to establish and maintain a consistent brand message. So there's just a couple of bullet points here, and they're really meant to highlight how relevant social media still is. At this, more than 70% of adults, probably including all of our parents, are using social media. And they're using it for a variety of different reasons. So social media isn't just for teenagers anymore. It's really being consumed by a majority of us. 30% of total U.S. internet time is spent on the internet dedicated to either consuming or producing social media content. And I believe that number is going to grow even more away from older traditional means of consuming information. I get most of my news and updates from Instagram instead of going to an online news site, and before actually tuning into television to get our news. I'm going to take a moment to highlight another point, that even though the broad spectrum of social media sites can be daunting or scary to tackle, from a brand protection perspective, to formulate a strategy that focuses on the more prevalent and influential social media sites. And you get a good sense of that just by looking at which sites are the most popular, and that's how we approach things as well. From a brand protection perspective, we start by tackling the more influential, more trafficked social sites. We expand our reach constantly. And when you thought that social media was the last frontier of the digital world, the new mobile channel has come out strong, significantly contributing to e-commerce in just a few short years. And as you see for some of these statistics, at the end of this year, around 60% of U.S. adults own smartphones. In fact, downloads of mobile apps are skyrocketing, with 2 billion downloads in 2013, expected to actually jump to 270 billion by 2017. A significant indicator of where business is going, 66% of merchants surveyed actively already support a mobile app presence. They attribute 20% of their revenues coming from the mobile channel. And again, it's expected to increase every year from here on out. And the line here is that as we continue on, more people are going to be accessing information and making purchasing decisions on their mobile devices, as opposed to traditional brick and mortar or even internet channels. Okay, that's this backdrop. Let's take a look at some of the areas for potential brand infringement. For those of you who might have been monitoring your brand intellectual property infringements for a while, it's probably not going to surprise you that there are a lot of bad actors out there that are ready to jump at an opportunity to divert revenues or consumer attention away from your products and services to theirs. Relates to the mobile and social channels. The three uses that I want to focus on today are impersonation, false association, and partner compliance. In terms of impersonation, I define this as actors who are trying to insinuate themselves between your brand and your customers in order to fool customers into thinking an offer or message is coming from your brand. Define false association, actors that misappropriate your copyrighted images and photos or even mark brand names. Even if the person is actively stating that they are not you, not the brand themselves, the look of a page or an app are going to be confusingly difficult to distinguish from your legitimate brand presence. And they may even allude to being a partner or in some way affiliated or having their activities sanctioned by you or your brand. Partner compliance. All folks have developers or partners that are allowed to use trademarks or logos or allowed to integrate with your technology, You just may need to be educated on the correct way to reference your brand or your message. I've kind of established and defined what the brand abuses are. Let's talk about specifically how they're going to be manifest themselves within the mobile apps and the social media channel. As far as impersonation goes, you'll likely see that occurring when you see your brand name in the developer handle itself. So along with what other infringements going on out there, that developer is actually trying to pass themselves off as you, whether they are calling themselves Brand Inc. or Brand Systems Inc. It may be exactly how you say your name, but it's confusingly similar. In terms of impersonation manifesting itself in the social media world, again, you're going to find your brand mentioned in the registered username. Between both apps and social media, the big thing here is that these actors are not going to deny brand affiliation. So typically, you can sense that they have some good intention. They'll say, hey, we're not affiliated with the company. This is a fan page. This is, which is really your brand. You're going to find those comments on a app or a social page that's actively trying to impersonate you. False association manifests itself among mobile apps and social media pages. You're going to see your trademarks and your copyrights used liberally in either the thumbnail or the screenshot, the title or the description of an app. You might find, again, in social media, your trademarks within your page name, with description of the about section of the page or tweet channel, and as well as amongst the posts on the page. And as I mentioned before, the look and the feel of your of this page is going to be very difficult for a casual observer to be able to distinguish from your legitimate presence in the mobile app channel or social media channel. As it relates to how partner compliance will manifest itself within the mobile app and social channels, that whatever rules and regulations that you've established up front, and hopefully you have just elements of either the app, the thumbnail, description, the title, or if it's social media, how they're creating their page name and their account channel information, it just won't be in compliance with your partner agreement. And then just finally, again, just touching on one of the impersonation points that I want to highlight specifically. Typically, you'll find that somebody who's really actively trying to impersonate you in social media, especially as it relates to Facebook, they use that page type as company instead of actively saying, hey, this is a community page or a fan page. So that's one thing to look out for as well. So let's take a look at some real-world abuse examples, and I'll try to walk you guys through what these are and what they mean, and really what the impact could be on your brand and your business. For example, I found the case of impersonation on Facebook, and this is actually the legitimate brand glasses manufacturer's page. So as you can see, this manufacturer owns this page. They've got their own copyrighted images in the wallpaper. They've got their own logo and image in the thumbnail, and garnered about 4 million likes, which is no surprise since it's a legitimate social site. But then, as we doing some research, and I found a impersonating page, again, with the same layout, the look and feel for this brand glasses manufacturer. So you've got copyrighted images in the wallpaper, the very same exact logo in the thumbnail, the company, the page to company, so it's actively portraying itself as a company. And not surprisingly, it's got about 5,000 likes. It's probably really difficult for a casual observer to be able to tell the difference between the page I showed you and this Facebook page. And, people are really easily confused, and especially if you start seeing some, content here that's trying to sell counterfeits, and then you've got big problems. Look at how an example of false association would manifest itself in the mobile apps channel. I was doing some research, and I came across this app that is portraying itself to be affiliated with a major airline company. A bit of modification to protect the innocent here, but when I found this app, they had the airline name in the title of the app. They had the airline's logo and image of the airplane in the thumbnail. And looked at the screenshots of the app itself. Not only does it have the image of the logo and the name of the airline, but it has some pretty unsavory commercials or advertisements around it as well. If you read the description, it'll tell you that this web app is for, interfacing with this particular brand airline's online account. The different name is not to be the airline, which is why I call this false association as opposed to impersonation. That's probably the biggest distinction that I would call out between impersonation and false association in this case. But those questionable advertisements and the pretty bad reviews that this app is getting, the fact that it doesn't work, that it's not doing what it's supposed to do, it was a consumer out there that was trying to integrate with this app or using information that they got from this app, and they got bad information or misinformation. This ended up being a big customer service nightmare for the airline company, and it's probably something that people would just want to avoid from the get-go, which is where the monitoring comes in. This is actually a favorite little example of mine, and we're touching on here compliance, but compliance as it relates to employee compliance in this Facebook example. And I'm not sure how much detail you can get, but in this case, this person is pretty clearly advertising their place of work and the brand, or the page name rather, on Facebook, and saying, hey, I'm so-and-so, and I work for so-and-so bank, and I'm a mortgage loan officer. Then, along talking about their place of work, they also have some pretty snazzy pictures of their vacation with a motorboat somewhere, and not necessarily sure when you're mixing business with pleasure that you're really going to cast the right brand image on the company. And in this particular case, you may not be able to go directly to the social media site, or you may not even want to go directly to the social media site to remediate something like this. It might be something that you take offline, you contact your employee or partner or affiliate and talk to them, and again, maybe with a gently worded reminder, just engage with them on the right brand message that you want to see out there in social media. The real-world example today is around compliance as it relates to mobile apps. And I think compliance in mobile apps is a little bit trickier because there's a lot of companies out there, especially I think social media companies, that actively encourage developers or partners to integrate with their technology and create really cool creative apps that are not only obviously promoting whatever that app is trying to do, but underlying promoting the company as well. But in some cases, as a company, you just need to be careful about how your partners and your affiliates are referencing your brand. And in this case, it's a little blurred out, but the test fine, they just call it an HD video app, but they're integrating to a world famous video watching site, and they're using confusingly similar trademarks and a look and feel. And at the end of the day, I don't know necessarily if all companies want their partners or affiliates to leverage their trademarks and logos to this degree, especially if it means that that app is going to get more downloads or reviews than the actual legitimate app from that company. And again, this is not necessarily something you would go to App Store with, but it's something you'd want to talk to with your affiliates. You might want to publish some rules and regulations up front and just set some guidelines around exactly what you can and can't do as it relates to your logos and trademarks. But in a short amount of time, so let's talk a little bit about what the mobile app enforcement best practices are. And I think it's a little tricky because it's a new space, and you really just kind of have to get a sense right off the bat about what exactly are the policies and the procedures of the mobile app stores. They're doing a really good job of providing options for enforcement for the traditional trademark and copyright, and we'll get into that in a second. But again, it's important to find out what is it the site is going to accept. I mentioned, I think, several times already, if you can already establish partner and affiliate guidelines, make them available online, make them available to your affiliates, and then, of course, continue to regularly monitor for partner compliance because, I think, as we saw in some of those real-world examples of abuses, customer service issues can get out of hand if they're not nipped in the bud. A lot of app stores require you to get engaged with the developer first, and so that point speaks to this bullet point, which is try to resolve issues directly with the app developers. And for example, Google Play is really good about providing the email for the developer right on the app listing. So, you can take that email address, you can reach out to the developer, you can express your concerns, request them to modify their app, title, thumbnail, whatever you want. If you cannot resolve the issue, then go ahead and send a follow-up notice to the App Store platform. Especially if it's something really urgent, you might want to do both, right? Reach the developer, send a notice to the App Store. So play it by ear, but a lot of stores really do require you to engage with the developer first. Social media enforcement best practices. We start by having a good defensive registration program across your brands. And so what do I mean by defensive registration? You do this because you might be launching a new product and you've already created a lot of collateral and a lot of really good ideas around brand names and brand product, and then you might go out there and find out that, for example, the Facebook page is taken or the Twitter handle is taken. And I think it's safe to say at this point in time, if you can't leverage mobile, social or mobile, in fact, to hit your product, it could be a showstopper. And from the perspective of defensively registering because you're launching a new product, it's important to do. And you never know what site is going to be the next Twitter or Pinterest. So it might start off small. It might be get low traffic numbers now, but you take the step to defensively register your brand on one of these smaller sites. You might save yourself a lot of heartache later on when it becomes the next big thing. Search for unauthorized use. Cast a wide search net across various different social media sites and pages. Look at the usernames, look at the posts, find out what's going on in the About section. The About section of social media pages, I think almost all sites have some version of it. It's a great place to see exactly how they're portraying themselves as it relates to brand. Search globally, but again, without getting intimidated by the sheer number of social media sites that are out there, try to focus your efforts first on the most popular, most influential, and most trafficked sites. Be vigilant for infringements as well as for compliance. Keep an eye out for new emerging sites, as we mentioned before. Appropriate action, but with the caveat that you should do it cautiously. And I say this because a lot of people, a lot of companies have not only an infringement problem, but they're out there marketing their brands, and they love having fan pages, and they love it when people retweet their marketing material, and so it garners a lot of buzz and a lot of positive media attention as well. And so when you are engaging in enforcement activity on the social media sites, I recommend making sure that you're touching base with other people, other departments in your company. Touch base with your marketing department as well and find out what they're doing and what they're okay with. But you certainly wouldn't want to, take down certain fan pages and risk disrupting your fan base or coming off like that you're too strong-handed. And the last two slides that I want to leave you with dig a little bit deeper into the specific enforcement policies that the mobile app stores and social media sites provide. And that's not to say that you can't take enforcement action on other things, but this is kind of a takeaway for all of you folks online. So you can see from the mobile app perspective, for example, most of the app stores, the big six as I like to call them, Amazon, BlackBerry, Google Play, iTunes, and the Windows Phone, Windows Store, they provide you with a concrete means of enforcing on trademark and copyright. Those sites will require you to fill out an automatic form, and some will allow you to submit them automatically in an email, which makes it a lot easier. A lot of sites are also starting to provide options for you to submit enforcements on keyword spamming, and that's an interesting little abuse that's up and coming, which is suppose I type in, a brand name on a search, in the search field of an app store, and rather than the expected results that are all results related to the brand, we see other apps that are completely unrelated. Well, what developers do is that they tag their apps with certain keywords to promote, the visibility of their app, and a lot of these stores are willing to take enforcements against keyword spamming. So that's something that you can keep in your back pocket if you notice that's happening with your brand and your terms. Device again, and I actually fully expect this list to continue to grow as more attention is turned towards mobile apps, especially as it relates to the kind of infringements that are going on. I think we're all still relatively new in the space in terms of monitoring and being vigilant, and I would expect that this list would increase in terms of the enforcement options that are available. Social media enforcement policies. Again, here I'm focusing on some of the more prominent players in the social media space: Facebook and Twitter, YouTube, Google+, and then LinkedIn, Pinterest, and Instagram, which are probably after Facebook and Twitter, some of the more popular sites. And options here for enforcement are a little bit more expensive. If they allow you to submit not just trademark and copyright, but they actually have separate enforcement reasons for things like impersonation. And you may not necessarily always use impersonation, even if it's a clear case of impersonation, because sometimes, submitting a trademark enforcement or a copyright enforcement will do the trick. But again, they do have that as a separate reason. You should use it when it's applicable, especially if you're seeing somebody who's passing themselves off as you. And counterfeit, too. I've seen a lot, and we didn't touch on counterfeit as an abuse today, but I find a lot of counterfeits being sold through social media pages, Instagram and Facebook, Twitter, and like. And so some social media sites are getting better about providing that as an enforcement option as well. Again, you can send in both email as well as form, and I think regardless of what the issue may be, a lot of these sites are really open to hearing from the brand owners and working with the brand owners, and even if it's a really specific use case, we've gotten great results when we work with them. And that's all I had to cover today. I hope this was informative and helpful for you, and we're always available offline to answer further questions. And so with that, I'm going to turn it over back to Reagan.
Well, so much, Sneha, for such a great overview. We're now ready to move on to our question and answer session. We had some questions come in during the presentation, so we've left some time to answer those. As a reminder to our audience, if you have a question, please submit them via the Q&A floating toolbar on your screen. At this point, I'm going to hand things over to Kirby, who will be moderating our Q&A session.
I appreciate it very much. One question that has come in that I think is very relevant to this conversation is, what about rogue mobile apps that are not hosted on your app marketplaces? And the good news is the vast majority of the abuse that we're seeing so far on the app marketplaces is being covered on the 5 or 6 major sites, Google Play and iTunes and et cetera. So those are getting picked up. But there are plenty of other websites that do offer downloadable apps. And in that case, many of these will actually link back to one of the major marketplaces. So if you're addressing the abuse at one of the major players, you are actually taking care of a link that links back to one of them. So that's a good way to go ahead and take care of that. And is by really staying on top of those major app marketplaces. And then also, too, in the event that one of those does not link back to a site, but it actually downloads from that website, then we would just follow a normal procedure of figuring out what that site's abuse reporting procedure is, and then following that to take it down. So, very good question. Let's see, we have another one here. It looks like it's social media related. Question: do you see much success in getting a post removed from a social networking site when someone links to a website selling counterfeit products? So that's a pretty common business problem that we see for many of the large brands that we work with as well. It's definitely been our experience that the social networking sites are very good at complying with most removal notices when it involves a link that's been placed in a post on a social networking site. Oftentimes those links will go to a counterfeit site, and most of the social networking sites that we see are very good about removing those kind of abuses. Let's see what else we have here. Another social networking question. How long does it take to get a response from a social media site? So I'm assuming that means a response to an enforcement. And typically the response times that we've seen, or at least our experience, has been most recently about 24 hours. Most of the social networking sites are pretty good at responding. In some cases, they have a canned automated response, and then they'll comply with the notice and remove the infringement, or they'll come back to you with some additional questions or some additional insight that they might need in order to complete the notice of infringement. So, but usually within 24 hours to answer that question. Looks like they have another one here, mobile apps. Let's see, what if we don't want the app removed because it's actually good for our brand? I think Sneha kind of touched on this, so this is a good question. But if we want them to change how they use our IP or intellectual property in their listing, very good. So one that comes to mind in particular, me, that I'm familiar with, that we work with, they do encourage app development for their brand, but also want to control and protect how that brand is used with these apps. So they want to have some control over that. They reach out to the developer first and usually use a soft notice. They want to hammer on them, but give them the opportunity. Hey, we want to bring you into compliance. We're glad you're developing an app for our brand, but we want to make sure you're using our intellectual property, trademarks, and copyrights in a way that follows our guidelines. And typically, I think that kind of approach works well. They get a really good compliance from the developers in those cases. And then when they don't, then that company reserves the right to get the app removed completely from the marketplace. So they really do, in that particular case, go out and try to work with that developer to get them into compliance with their policies. Very good questions. I think that's the questions I've got currently. Feel free, as Reagan mentioned, if you want to use your little Q&A window, you can feel free to send some more questions in. Okay. One more question here, it looks like, on the app side again too. So the question is, what is your recommendation for dealing with app listings where the developer uses our trademarks as keywords to drive traffic to their app? Good, and I know Sneha touched on this a little bit too. So the good news is keyword stuffing. Again, and I think Sneha did mention that, but is where somebody will take and use your trademark, your brand's trademark, in their app title. It could be in the description, or it could be with the tags associated with the listing as well. And their goal, obviously, is to get some additional exposure, leveraging your brand, and drive traffic to their app. It's basically trading on your brand equity. Our experience is that each of these major app stores are very good about removing keyword stuffing when it's brought to their attention. So the key in this case is just simply enforce. When you see that kind of stuff, make sure you're enforcing on it. Okay, looking for a question here. Question. So another question here that came in is, where do you see on the Facebook page if a page is a company page versus a community page or a fan page? And I wish I could show you an example, but I don't have the ability to show you that. So typically something like that, in terms of where you would see that, is right underneath the profile name. Oftentimes listed there, or underneath the icon. So I'm thinking of Facebook in my mind. Hopefully you guys can visualize that as well. That the little image, I guess, that's right next to the profile on a Facebook page. On there, it'll tell you if it's a community page, a fan page, and you can also, I believe, you can get that in the About Us too. So I'm not sure if you have any further clarification or if you want to add to that or not. But very good question as well. All right. I think I've asked all the questions that have come through as far. Is there
Hey, Kirby.
other questions? I'm sorry, go ahead, Sneha.
I have a couple of questions here on our side. And one of the ones that I wanted to address is the question of whether or not Reagan, can you scroll up a little bit more at the very top? Okay. There's a question that says, can false association pages pay to promote on Facebook? And I've heard about this. I've heard that there are ways that you, as a bad actor, could get fake followers or fake likes or, fake pages to kind of support your impersonating page. And from what I've heard, the established social media sites are actually already on top of it. So Facebook, for example, I think has an algorithm where they'll automatically detect any page that seems like it's established just to promote commercial activity without their substance with it. This is kind of a new area that I'm keen on exploring as well. So from what I understand, yes, it can happen, and the established sites are taking pains to try to curb it, but that doesn't mean that it isn't, getting through, and in some cases they may not be able to catch it all. But again, a great question and a good area to explore as we talk about social brand abuse. Another question, let's see if we can find. Let's see. I wonder if we. Oh, so this question about how do we search for new potential sites, and I think when I was talking about defensive brand registration, and typically what we do is we take a holistic look at all the social media sites out there, and really, again, I said this a couple of times, but focus on the most, we start by doing the most popular ones, and all the way down the list to the ones that don't get any traffic at all. You can't do it all, but you can take a big chunk of, the good people know about, the ones that nobody's ever heard about. We try to stack rank by traffic, and then we'll cast that net and do just a massive defensive registrations. Okay, here's a question. How do you protect a brand's content versus trademark? And as it relates, this is a social media question, as it relates to protecting any content online, and let's take Facebook or Twitter, not to pick on any social media site, when looking at the trademark, you're typically finding it as part of your page name, right, or the Twitter handle or the YouTube channel. It'll be either the developer name or the publisher's name, the author's name, or in the handle. When it comes down to what you can enforce as part of a post or a tweet, that becomes a little trickier because you need to be able to skirt around freedom of speech issues. So typically, as it relates to content, I would say, look for if it's an image associated with the content, then you've got that copyright angle. When you've got actual brand being spoken about in the content itself, you might have a leg to stand on for infringement. But again, you always have to keep in mind the parallel of speech and what you really need to take action on versus what might be harmless or just let it lie. I don't think there's any.
You're good.
Sorry. Did you say something?
No, I was just going to check back in. So.
I think that's all the questions we've got to be able to answer today. I'm going to send it back over to Reagan to conclude the presentation.
Great. Well, thank you, Kirby and Sneha, for such a great overview and for helping field some of the questions that came in today. Now, reminder, we'll be sending out a follow-up email tomorrow with a link to the webinar materials, so you'll have access to all this great information. So I would like to thank everyone for joining today's session. As I appreciate all the questions that came in, this always helps to make for a more interactive session and, of course, draws out more information for the audience. So with that, we'll conclude our webinar for today. Thanks again for tuning in, and have a great day, everyone.